All right, we're recording. Hey, everybody. Uh, I have to be honest with you. I haven't been managing to our beautiful project management software yet because I'm trying to work out a glitch in setting it up so that it makes it a little bit easier for me to use. So, unfortunately, that's not what I've been using, but I will be back on that track sometime this month. So it'll be a little bit easier for all of us, I guess. So basically, I've been going back to my old-fashioned method, which is not lazy, but it's not the best way to manage these meetings. So I apologize in advance. Let me share my screen real quick. Do your entire screen here. Ignore. So let's go. I'm going to race through what's in the sales hopper real quick. I'll go through it very quick, and then we'll get into the meat of everything. I'll go through the non-magazine related stuff first, since that's where the big bucks are. UGC, United Grain Corporation, we got a lot of things lined up with them this year. United Grain Corporation, Jessica just got back from doing a shoot out in Vancouver. And by all accounts, that went real well. And the customer seems very happy, so that's awesome. And the longer we keep them happy, the more work we're going to get from them. Carla's not on the call that I see. Carla's over in Sydney, Montana. We're going to be doing a shoot here pretty quick at the Culbertson grain elevator, where they're going to photograph a farmer and the elevator itself and some local trade, or what do you want to call it, landmark type shots for social media. So that's going to be coming up here pretty quick. Also pretty quick, and I was talking before we started the meeting with Addison, we're going to do one out in South Dakota or North Dakota with her as well, for much further east than Carla, but I'll be dealing with that one offline. But this work's already pretty much lined up. And then I'll have another shoot or two in Montana, and possibly one out in Idaho for a return trip out there, but I don't know about that just yet. If that happens, it'll be in harvest season, which would be like August or something on that order, but I don't have the details on that one just yet. So that's the stuff that's in the hopper, ready to go. Miranda's not on. Oh, Miranda is here. Great. One of the big ones, big sales, which impacts us all, that Miranda is going to be working on. The head of marketing over there got elected to the Washington State Senate, the state legislature, and she's been swamped with the things that they're doing there, and they're worried about their social media stuff and competing against their competitors. So I offered to have our team kind of do that, since there's a very large photography element to that. And so this month, so you know what's going on in the backgrounds, Miranda has, because of her situation, she makes a great person to work on this project. She's going to be doing some intelligence on the competitors and collecting information about what they post on social media, so we can keep up to date on what's going there. In the meantime, Miranda and I will be working on social media posts so we can demonstrate through the month of June what we can do and what we can post for social media for them on their behalf. Of course, in a normal situation, we would create those and they would have them for review and edit. But this is just to demonstrate what we would send to them, along with the art, photos, graphics, whatever, to go along with that. It's a very large sale, and why that benefits everyone is that it comes with a component where they're licensing photos from us to go along with their social media posts. So in the case of Montana and North Dakota, if you have stock images of just various scenes that would fit within the social media posts, then they would license those from you for those type of shots. And there are cases where, and that's why we're doing these Bucyrus, Moccasin, Culbertson, other grain elevator shoots, so we can build up their social media library as well. Those are paid gigs, by the way. But those are also where they're licensing photographs in perpetuity, in addition to us creating some social media stuff which would be more of a royalty-free license. But so that's exciting stuff. That would be a potentially a very large sale. Still working out things with sustainable oils. They're the ones that grow camelina, which is also known, I think, it's also called false flax seed, I think, something like that. And what they do is they turn that into a renewable energy source. They make renewable diesel with that plant. They do a lot of it up in Canada. That stuff hasn't matured yet, but it will here when we start getting closer to the crops maturing, when it goes to flower and when it goes to harvest. So that'll be coming up here hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks. And that will be for people in far eastern Montana as well as in central Montana. I got a sale. This doesn't impact you guys so much, but Independence Bank is building new branches along the High Line. They licensed a photograph from me, several photographs from me for the new branch office. Do any of you, and I think the answer is probably no for the people that are on this call, but I thought I'd ask, do any of you guys have photographs over in the Wolf Point, Montana area, like Wolf Point to, I forget what else is out there, basically Wolf Point? If you guys do, let me know offline because they'd be interested in licensing some photographs to go in their new bank building that's going up there. And they've got several other branches. They just built one in Great Falls that I licensed a bunch of photographs to them for that too. Also, I think this impacts Jessica potentially. The Midwest, or pardon me, Mountain View Co-op is building a new gas station down in Fairfield. They're tearing down the old one there. So they'll be looking for photos for their new digs there as well. 328 Design Group is an architectural firm that I'm working with for some Montana prints for a commercial project. Tractor Zoom is a new website that's being launched. They're looking to license some photos. Hasn't matured yet. The Torgerson shoots, this impacts you, Adriana. That hasn't matured yet. I had a long conversation with her yesterday. Torgerson's is kind of slow. They're a very conservative company. They're not as ambitious, or I should say aggressive with marketing like their competitor, the John Deere dealers in the state are. But she swears it's coming. They're going to do it. So I guess we'll wait and see. So my fingers are still crossed on that one. One of the sales did fall through. This one down here, BKT USA, it didn't fall through. I mean, my lead contact person said, given some things that are going on in the market conditions, they've tabled this for now, but they plan on taking it off the table at some point in the next year, and they'll come back and let us know so we can do that work. We got a what do you call a farm and ranch session that I'm closing up near Haver. I'll have more details on that later. Also on that note, which I can talk about now, we didn't get a lot of bites on the money that I spent for the farm and ranch shoots for ranching, but I got a lot of inquiries from farmers, not so much from the ranchers, which is interesting. I guess I have to analyze that. So I'm going to do another ad buy on Facebook as we get a little closer to the harvest season. So for those of you that are in harvest country, and that it would still include you, Addison. Addison, you kind of came late to the game. I don't think we talked to you about that. What we're doing is we're selling sessions on farms and ranches during harvest season or during branding, I guess. We've come up with some package pricing, which everybody kind of agreed to. I'll share that with you later, Addison, so you can make sure that that's something that you think is adequate for payment on that stuff too. But we're marketing across the board, and I think we'll get. Addison, you kind of did 2 of those last year for me, remember? So we'll hopefully get some more of those out your way as well. Farm Bureau is redesigning their headquarters in Bozeman, and they're looking for prints. I have, I'm waiting to get a list of what they want. They purchased one vinyl wall wrap for me that's like 8 feet tall by 12 feet tall, but it sounds like they have another 12 prints they need. And once I get those details, I'll let you know. The Northern Pulse Growers contract begins here in about 20 days. And I expect that contract, that's a decent sized sale. So for those of you that have contacts who are growing pulse crops, then you'll have some opportunities to go out and make some money right away on that job. I still got that money from the Montana Department of Agriculture. Again, for all of you that obviously this doesn't impact you, Addison, but for those of you in Montana, if there's some boutique crop out there, again, like safflower or pulse crops or hemp or hops or chickens or dairy, things that are outside the common stuff that we see in Montana, beef and wheat, anything but that. They want shots of that so they can use it for their social media account and stuff. So if you know someone in your neck of the woods that's growing something unique, let me know and let's set it up so you guys can go do a shoot there. Also, this next month, I'm going to be starting putting together the calendar photos for the Montana Department of Agriculture. If you've got some nice photographs that are rural and or agriculture oriented that really tell an essence of a season. So in other words, like the easy one is like a nice snow-covered red barn, always works well for the month of December. And then when you get into, spring, something that has flowers or something that's very green and perking up. Fall would be, if you got some rural scene with the cottonwoods turning or aspens turning orange would be great. August would be, July and August would be harvest related shots, your most beautiful harvest shots. February would be a good color, a good photo there would be something, again, these are deep dives, but a good photograph for February would be something like a snowy, because it's still snowy in Montana usually, that and cold, but something like with a pink sky because of Valentine's Day. That would be a great shot for then. But anything you got, let me know if you want something in that calendar. I'll send out an email on the day that I start putting together photographs. And there'll be, I think that we've got budgeted something like $300-400 per image that they use, which is pretty good if you already have it. Abundant Montana, I had a conversation with Alexis about this. Alexis, they're looking for, she's down in the Belgrade area, and this will impact you too, Kelly. They're looking for shots for their next year's catalog, I guess, and that's like farmers market shots and vegetables and those kind of shots for their new publication. And I'll have copies of those that I can share with you guys so you can see what kind of shots they're looking for. Curated American Harvest Artists, that's the Hobby Lobby account. That's still they're still they haven't gotten back to us yet. But I talk to them on a regular basis, but this is one of those things that takes time. It could take up to a year before we get any work on that one. Lewistown Hospital. Sherry Berg, who was joining us out of Stanford, which is outside of Lewistown, she had something come up where she can't really do this much anymore. I'm helping her a little bit on the side so she can improve her craft, but she's just swamped with work and what's going on in the home front. So she wants to, but she doesn't have the time to join anymore. So I remember I was working with Sherry Berg and creating photographs for the new hospital that's going up in Lewistown. And this kind of dovetails into Billings Clinic. So again, if you have scenic Montana shots, in particular those in central Montana, anything like, and I'm only going to use this as an example because I know there's potentially one that's lingering out there. I know, Jessica, you might have some cool like shots of that barn that you guys, visited here a month ago, or things like that. But very rural and uplifting and positive, beautiful images. As soon as you guys have images like that, let me see them so I can start peddling those to both facilities. The Lewistown facility isn't as far along, but I'll keep dropping those in the folder so when they are ready, they'll all be put together and ready to go. Billings Clinic is able to look at photos at any time because they're constantly buying images, and they license those at something like $100 each. So, and it also tells you what you should be doing as far as making, beautiful Montana images. Now, and this applies to those furthest away from Billings Clinic. Images of like Glacier National Park won't work for them because it's just too far away for their residents inside their facility, people, their patients and stuff in their facility. So they're okay with taking general beautiful Montana shots, but stuff that's more site specific that demonstrate that it's not. I mean, they have a lot of stuff. Their territory covers now from like Bozeman east, from west of Bozeman to the Montana border, or the Montana North Dakota border, up to almost Sydney and down to the Wyoming border. So that's a pretty big swath of area that they cover. But if you've got beautiful landscapes, flowers, especially flowers, they love flower shots. So if you have stuff like that, and I suspect you do, Kelly, let me know. Put them into a folder online. They don't have to be full res, but put them into a folder online, and then I'll let you know if we can use them for pitching to those places. I was contacted by a guy from Montana who's in the country of Georgia, who I trust him. I talked on the phone with him. He has perfect English, who is putting together a book about Montana. And it's a one part written, one part photo book. And just so you know, so I'm in the efforts of full clarity, he wanted to license like 200 images. He wanted to license like 100 images from me, and then have you guys go out and make the other photographs. And I kept trying to nail him on price and trying to figure out where we were. We were wasting our time. And then when he finally gave me a price, he was looking to spend like $7.50 for an image. And I'm like, shit, you can get them for that price through microstock. What do you need me for? So I basically kind of declined doing work for him. I mean, he wanted to pay like $1,500 for all the images, and I'm sorry, your images and my images are worth more than $7.50 each. So I kind of turned that one down. Western Horseman Calendar, we're not going to hear back from them on your photos that you submitted for that until probably July or August at the soonest. Great Basin Seed Company in Utah is looking to have someone come out for a week and make some social media photos. So I'm working out details on that gig. BKT USA, I told you that one. That's an Indian tractor wheel company. That stuff has been tabled. Strategies 360 State of Montana DOT. Armington Junction with the drone shots and still shots. That one won't be ready until for another 2 or 3 weeks. But then we'll have the green light to go down there and do that one. We'll have one more Strategies 360 or 2 shoots. I just don't know where they are yet and when they're going to be. They're probably going to be in the autumn, but I don't have the details on them yet. They haven't given those to me. But I always get 2 in the autumn from them. I asked them, will there be 2 more this autumn? They said yes. I just don't have the details. We're also doing a museum shoot. Jessica, just so you know, they got the work. They haven't got the green light to do it yet. Fay Ranch's Realty. Miranda's going out there sometime next week. There's a big ranch, beautiful ranch near Colstrip that they're selling. I think it's listed for like $8 to $12 million. Miranda's going to go out there with some friends and ride horse and spend a day and a half and just make nice shots, photos of the ranch. So that's a nice paying gig. Sotheby's is one that Jessica was working on near Helena, and they're going to have more work, especially down in the Belgrade, Livingston, Bozeman area. So I'll keep you posted on that. So that's where we are in sales. I also have about 6 or 7 other ones. They're just not mature enough to talk about yet. You know, I've been cold calling them. We've had some preliminary conversations, but there's nothing in the coffers just yet as far as work there. On the editorial front, Jessica had a nice photo series published in Big Sky Journal, multiple shots and multiple shoots. She did a good job, and Big Sky Journal is going to give all of us more work because of it. So we'll have Jessica to thank if they slide some more stuff our ways. And that's going to be mostly, that was kind of a one-off, the topic. They'll do one very Montana subject per issue, but most of the issue is like dedicated to like fly fishing. So I guess in that regard, who am I thinking of? Hold on a second. Alexis Klingsmith is down in Bozeman. She does Belgrade. She does a lot of fly fishing with her and her boyfriend and stuff and friends. So she's going to probably be able to get some shots and do some shoots for them in that magazine there. But the rest of you, if you're, have an opportunity to, photograph some fly fishing, any kind of fishing really, in your regard, Adriana, I'm not sure how often you get over to the reservoir over there. What's the big one that's between you and Chester? What's it called?
Lake Elwell?
Yeah. I wonder if they would do, there's some very good walleye fishing there. What's the other one that's over by Valere? What's that called?
Lake Francis.
Is there any real good fishing in that, or is that just...
I'm not sure about that one.
I know there is over in Lake Elwell. But I don't know the details. I know they have a lighthouse, Lake Francis, but I don't know if there's any fishing there. So, but if you know of anybody that's going out there, if you have some friends that are going on Lake Elwell and they're going fishing or a boat and you're tagging along, don't forget to bring your camera, because, you do a nice shot of what it's like to fish on Lake Elwell. That's something the Big Sky Journal might pick up. Distinctly Montana magazine. I have a cover shot in that, and I have concert photos with somebody I know who's not a part of this group, who's down in Missoula. She does very urban type photography that are in there, but they also are doing. Carla's not on the phone right now. She's got some photos that are going in that next issue. That's going to be featuring on a rancher profile, and there'll probably be one other autumn article that I don't have the details on just yet, but I'll keep you guys posted on that. But Montana Magazine will be, like I said, we'll be getting at least two opportunities to get published there every issue. Progressive Publishing, if you're familiar with them, they do progressive cattle. They're a big trade journal in the cattle industry. They also have Progressive Dairy, I think. I was able to get some jobs with them. I don't have all the details on those just yet, but we'll be doing some probably more along the line of cover shots for them, like drovers there. But Progressive Publishing is a new client that we brought on, and we'll be doing some work there. Range Magazine, 2 of you guys have stuff that are being published there. I get these names mixed up. There's Carla and Kyla. Let me get the pronunciation right. Those are the 2 that always give me the biggest trouble. Hold on. My mouse is doing weird things. Hold on. Oh, Kayla and Carla. That's why I get stuck there. Kayla and Carla both have photographs being published in um, Range Magazine, and there's going to be more stuff the following month too. This company that this Fay Ranches Realty that Miranda's working on. The other thing there is they publish a magazine called Land Investor Magazine, and if you go and look it up, they're featuring stories about like Montana and the neighboring states that are just very generic. And if you look at the magazine, it's an interesting magazine because they get a lot of advertising in it, which means they have a budget. And they in the back section is like all high end like realty listings for like ranches. So the reason they have advertising is there's companies that are trying to reach that, you know, those elites that are buying up big ranches. They're advertising to them. So they have a neat little thing going on there. So I've been dealing with I'm not sure if she's the editor, but she's a bigwig within that organization. She's probably not an editor, is she, Miranda? I don't know what she does with the mag. You probably don't know, but you might find out. But anyhow, her organization is behind that particular magazine in one way or another, and they're totally open for us to submit photographs for there. So I'm going to be getting some more details on that once Miranda gets on with her shoot, and I'll give you guys some ideas and stuff to go out and photograph so you can be published in the magazine. I'm still missing one address, but I don't see everybody here. I've got the addresses from Farm and Ranch Sessions. I told you I'm going to go ahead and put an ad by for those to cover the state in each of your areas. And once the ads go in there, I'll show you them. I want you to keep an eye out for them. They'll be distributed through Facebook. Since I might do Instagram, but right now I'm focused on Facebook because that's where all the Montana sales seem to percolate from. And that's for ranch sessions during the basically from July 15th to September 1st. So I'm going to try to get as much work during that time. We bought one for the shoot we were doing out in Vancouver. I'm not sure if you actually ended up using it. Did you end up using that 360-degree camera at all yet, Jessica?
I thought I was supposed to use it for the Helena shoot.
Yeah, well, but you haven't. Okay, you probably. I thought you might have it with you and you might do something with it, but so you haven't used it yet. That's fine.
I've practiced with it, but I've used that exact same camera before.
But it's nothing too fancy, right?
It's a nice camera, but it's not super hard to figure out.
No, that's what I meant. I mean, it's not hard to figure out, right?
Yeah.
So if you're unfamiliar with, if you go to for those who are unfamiliar, maps.google.com. Let's go to Great Falls, Montana. And if you look here, you guys obviously are familiar with street level view. If you pick up the guy and you slide him in there, you see these dots in here now. They're not as prevalent in Montana just yet, but they're big in the bigger cities. So oftentimes these are inside a building. So this is not the best example of it, but it's, you know, where you can basically you're doing street level view inside of a building, and companies are paying big bucks to do this. Now, again, this isn't the best example of that. The ones that would be a good example of this are like, you know, really interesting, like Sip and Dip. Are you guys familiar with the Sip and Dip in Great Falls, the Mermaid Bar? I mean, that would be a perfect place for this kind of stuff because, you know, people want to see what it looks like before they go there. Stores like that. Again, bad example. Well, here, let me do a better example. In my hometown, here, there's a bar. It's one of those new bars where there's no bartender. They have like just a row of beers, and you can go up and it charges your charge card. So this is how it's used. So you go and do like, I don't know, between 6 and 10 360-degree views. So they do one so you can see what it looks like from the outside. And then you can step inside and you can do the same thing. You can keep walking like you do inside, like you do on a street level view. And again, you got a 360-degree view of the entire room. And so this is, places that are using this are like bars, restaurants, cool-looking shops. Museums are very popular using this because they want to offer 360. They want to offer virtual tours for a fee. They're doing this more and more. So this is becoming a very popular thing back east. And so this camera we've purchased so we can have it shipped around the state. And one of the things I want to do, I'm starting to explore, is setting up a website specific to real estate photography, and 360-degree photos, drone photography, still photographies, things like that. Because I've had four different real estate agencies contact me for reasons I can't explain in the last month and a half. And this is a nice little gig to get into. And I'll show you why this is important here in a second. This isn't the most wonderful, fun. I mean, I'm not saying it's not fun. There's certainly other photo shoots that you can do that are more fun, but it pays the bills. And you'll see here in a second why this is important. Also doing some stuff, Montana photo tours. We got some planning coming up, and we'll figure out where that stuff stands. But eventually it will have its own website there, which I've started working on already. And I want to separate from the photography stuff, the social media stuff that we're doing with United Grain Corporation, because there might be a potential to get accounts with other companies to do the social media stuff. So that'll be done under the Flying Cow Media brand, and Miranda and I will be working on setting up that website. As for AgPix we're chugging along. We had 2 hiccups because we're trying to integrate the video aspect of this, which is important for farm journal media. And we hit a hiccup with regard to artificial intelligence on 2 fronts. On the one front, my website issues out a new update to its features, which means when you upload photographs, it's automatically inserting captions if you wanted to and keywords, which is great. But we're still playing with that technology and trying to integrate it into the website. The other reason there's been a hiccup is, I'm not sure how many of you have seen this, but artificial intelligence is all the rage right now. And it's scary. And it's something that has to be contemplated from a business standpoint if you're a photographer. I'm going to mute this so you don't have to see it. But in case you haven't seen this, and there's multiple examples, you can see many of these examples on YouTube. So in this particular, and this is a new product from Photoshop. It's currently, if you have Photoshop, you can go download the beta version of this yourself and play with this, okay? And the thing about this that makes it so scary is that there's no skill necessary to do this. All you need is Photoshop. So this is a photograph. I'm familiar with this location. This is in Chile. These are called the Salt Flats. I forget the name of the mountains out there, but these are salt flats there. So what this photographer did is he went in there and he made an oval. He selected an area in the map, and he went in there and he typed in, what do you want to generate with AI? He said classic car from the 1950s. And he clicks generate. And in a matter of seconds, it drops cars in there. And you can pick, it gives you options. And you'll notice here, the shadowing is perfect in the gaps. So, I mean, this is the higher level. They're not just taking a piece of clip art. They're actually literally, molding it into the scene. And then he selects this area and he tells it he wants to put in a body of water, a lake. And voila, it inserts it. And he can flip between the different variations of it, or he can generate it again. And it creates the shadow. And it even creates the shadow because it knows where the sun's coming from by looking at the photograph. So it knows where the shadow should be. I mean, it's reading this photograph almost perfectly. Now, again, it doesn't always work perfectly, but it will within 2 to 3 years. It's getting there. So here he's going in there, and now he says the sky's a little, clear, not a lot of clouds. So he goes in and he circles it. And of course, this is relatively simple. Actually, I think this is the worst thing it did. I don't think this cloud matches this scene very well at all, but whatever. It still generates clouds, which is amazing. And then if you go further along, he extends the image, right? So it's a vertical shot, and customer asks for a horizontal shot. So he extends the canvas, right? He selects the image, then he does inverse. So that means he's selecting all the pixels outside of the middle of this image. He's inverting it. And then he's telling it to generate fill, and he's going to tell it to, let's see what he types in here. He's going to type in, he's talking, so he's not really generating. But he was able to create this scene. He told it to fill in with mountains and the sun, and it did this. So you go back to the original image, it's here, which is nothing, right? And it becomes this. All through computer manipulation. So it starts to make you wonder. I don't mean to scare everyone, but I mean, one of the reasons we do photography is because we enjoy it. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's, but this could potentially alter the landscape. First of all, AI is going to change a lot of things in America, in the world. It's going to put writers out of business. It's going to put marketers, a lot of marketing people out of business. It's going to be very tumultuous here in the next, 2 to 5 years. But photography is on the cusp of being in the crosshairs too. Now, what I do, and what many of you want to do, or want to at least do on the side, is going to be the most protected forms of photography, meaning that, yeah, you can generate a wheat field and stuff like that, but if we're hired to do like commercial photography with real people in them, right? AI can't generate, at least yet, the entire staff of a company when you're doing a shoot like that. And when you're doing a real estate shoot, and that's why I'm bringing this full circle, why the real estate stuff might be wise to get into, because you can't tell it to go down to, the sip and dip and provide, a 360-degree photograph or still images of what it looks like to sell, or a ranch, specific to that ranch, or things like that. So if we stay within the opportunities will still exist in those areas that can't be duplicated by AI. And those are the things we got to be thinking about, owning that landscape, owning that space within the photography market, because and if you're a wedding photographer, which I'm not sure any of you are, I don't think any of you are, and portrait photographer, I know Miranda, you do some portrait stuff. I think Addison, you do. Adriana, Addison, you're photographing bulls. Yeah, they'll be able to put a bull in there, but it won't be the one that your customers are selling. So in that regard, you're probably safe. And this tool can actually be a benefit to some degree, I guess. But it's something to keep on the radar. So from an ag picks perspective, here's the dilemma. I'm not certain, because I've been asking questions and nobody's answering them. My first question to Adobe was, because I'm on a, what do you call it, I get the beta test some of the stuff before it rolls out to the public. I asked Adobe, when you tell it to produce an automobile like it did in this scene, right? Whose photographs are they sampling to come up with this image? Even if it was completely generated by a computer and it wasn't actually photographed, they must be sampling some reference material to create this. So, and were they paid? I asked them, and they couldn't answer the question. And I've emailed this question, and I keep asking this question, and nobody's telling me. So, I mean, are they pulling it off of the web or the internet? I just don't know. So it makes me wonder whether or not the approach to stock photography in this regard, and I've dumped thousands and thousands of dollars into ag picks by now, and I'd hate to, throw good money at bad. I mean, I'm still going to move forward with ag picks, but before I go too far, and we're only talking about this delaying it like a couple weeks. I'm having conversations with my IT people and a few people, resource people in their industry, to try to figure out what the actual impact of this is, to see if I can figure it out. I just don't know yet. So I'm in the middle of analyzing that, which is fine. I mean, it's happening at the same time that we're trying to work out some issues with regard to the new AI system built into the software. And we're still trying to work out the issues with video, because I don't think AI yet so far can create video. So we're still going to have the Farm Journal video and the stuff from our partner in Europe to peddle. But I'm just concerned about, will you and I, how we leverage the most money out of our photographs. And if it really is in ag picks, I don't know. So I'm exploring that, to be honest with you, to see exactly what we're supposed to do. But I'm a little concerned. So that's where that is. So I guess I'll open it up for questions. I guess I would ask you a question. Do you guys, and of course, most of you come from a different generation than I do. Do you think this is something that we should be concerned about? Am I over exaggerating the concern? Am I under exaggerating the concern? What do you guys think?
I've been listening to a lot of podcasts talk about using it as a tool right now, but it's kind of hard to say, I guess, where it's going to go in the future. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think it will have the greatest impact on photos that are used. If you go to like Shutterstock right now, right, and look for images, or Adobe Stock, you'll see images that actually are showing that they're AI, artificial intelligence created. So I suspect it will have the greatest impact on the micro stock market. The ones where they basically give away the photographs, right? They're hard for us to make money on those anyhow. So I have a firm belief that if you're still making quality images, right, there's still going to be a market for that, no matter what. Because, we'd have to go a long ways down the road before a computer, I hope, before a computer can create, the perfect photo of a scene that is authentic. And there's still going to be people out there who are going to want authenticity. But it also means for all of you that if you're photographing anything, I don't care what it is, you got to tell a story with your camera. The whole idea of going out and making one photograph on assignment, at some point, and it might be for some of you in your tenure on this journey, it might be premature for you to do that just yet, because you haven't made the leap from that just yet. But you got to get to a point where you're telling a story with your camera. You have to be able to show them multiple images from the same event or shoot that tells the story, because AI, I don't think, can do that as well. And it's like shooting a wedding, only you're not. You might be shooting weed harvest, right? But you have to tell a story. You have to be a bit of a journalist, a bit of a wedding photographer, a stock photographer, and a commercial photographer, because there's a company there that you're, it's a farmer, but it's still a company, and you got to kind of tell the story in as beautiful and romantic a way as possible. And if you do that, then I think that we'll always have business to a degree, but it could impact, some sales on the periphery, ones that we don't get rich on anyhow, but it could have a deleterious effect. My only concern is about having everybody's photographs out there that they can sample from, and that we get no revenue, but they're able to create their AI images based off of our images. So part of me is thinking that if we launch the site, maybe we don't want to have it crawled by Google. I don't know. Maybe it's a private site. There aren't that many customers in this industry, right? There are, but there aren't. So I wonder about, if you can create a website that these are the discussions we're having behind the scene. Can we create a website that has stock photography that's only accessible with a password, a username and a password? And, it's easy to get it out to all the magazines. It's easy to get that information in the hands of all the ad agencies and all the big businesses and many of the medium-sized businesses. And through word of mouth, it'll eventually end up to every, company within agriculture. So maybe we don't need Google in this sense. We don't need to have it open on the World Wide Web so that these people can crawl that and sample the images. So that would be a very unique business model, but it's a discussion that we're having. What do you think, Jessica? You studied photography as a career. What do you think about this?
I've been looking not too in depth into it, but kind of like Adriana, I've listened to a few podcasts lately about how to use it more as like a batch editing tool. And I kind of wanted to look into that way further, because it's supposed to, there's supposed to be certain technology where it'll, I guess, copy your editing style and then like batch edit your photos for you, so it could be like a time saver in that way, which if it works well, I have my hesitations about it, but if it works well, it could be really nice to have. But yeah, what you showed me tonight, I never seen that before, so I was kind of shocked by the results of that. That was pretty
Well, the thing is, we're at the
crazy.
cusp of the technology, right? I think Kelly and I are reasonably close in age. Kelly and I could tell you the stories of what life was like before computers. And we could tell you what life was like with, the TRS-80, and then the Apple II, and then the first Macintosh, and then the PCs, and the evolution, and that was over a span of, 30 years. Well, this is going to go a hell of a lot quicker than that. And I think the impact is going to be just as great, this AI stuff. And if so, where are we 5 years from now? We're at the cusp of it now, but what will it be able to do in 2028? Which isn't that, for those of you who are younger, it's not that far away. Kelly and I will tell you, I think Kelly will agree with me. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Kelly, but it's not that far away. It's right around the corner. So, yeah. So just, in your spare time, I would encourage you guys to kind of go online and research this technology. What you're saying, Jessica, obviously there are some things this technology will do that will benefit us. There's no doubt about it. But there's some things that could be, disastrous if you're not doing the right kind of, if you're not in the right kind of work. So, it's obviously important that we establish a name for ourselves in the world. For those of you who want to do agriculture photography, and that's about my only gig. I do some travel stuff too with state of Montana stuff, but that's more on the side. you better establish your niche, whether you're doing real estate or if you're doing agriculture, whatever it is you want to do, you better establish your niche early. Kelly, the stuff that you shoot, the nature stuff, that's going to be probably the greatest impactful, because it's not specific necessarily. You can make any trail look like it's anywhere in the world. You can make any leaf from any plant look like it's anywhere in the world. I mean, that's probably more easily copied than, say, something that's specific to a property or a person's being. So we just have to talk about this a little more. I'm talking about behind the scenes with my IT team and a few business people that are connected in the stock photography industry that are big people in the industry, and they're trying to figure it out too. So before I throw too much more money down a hole that we have to either rip out and do over or whatever, I'm just kind of slow rolling that while we work out these two other issues before I go headstrong into getting that thing launched. We're going to do something, right? I just want to make sure it's best positioned so that we can not lose any more investment into the project, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Any other questions?
I've been taking a couple of photos for just kind of like family brandings and a few photos here and there, but agriculture is not like my area of expertise. So I was wondering if I could just put together a folder of a few of my better photos and just submit it to you for just some feedback. I mean, not even to use necessarily for any of these projects, but just to get some like overall feedback. Do you think that'd be okay?
Adria, I've had some, just by nature of the work, Jessica and I have spent a lot of time, probably more than she prefers, on the telephone on certain projects, and so we've been able to go back and forth on stuff like that. Miranda, I've been spending some time with, at least every week, if not every other week, with her shooting and stuff to help her in that regard. I also have spent time to a lesser degree, with Kelly and with Alexis. So if you want to do some, personal sessions where I can look at your stuff and grade and talk to you, about, how it can improve and do better, I'm more than happy to do that. Obviously we have to find a time in both our schedules, but, I don't mind doing that at all, Adriana, no problem at all. Just let me know. Today's, the rest of this week is going to be out, obviously, but sometime next week, if you've got a time, you want to set aside like an hour and a half. I say an hour and a half. We're going to get out of here in an hour unless somebody brings up something I need, which is rare for me. But for those sessions, usually when we delve into some photos, and I talk about compositional techniques and show you some editing styles, that'll take a little bit longer. I think like an hour and a half we should probably schedule.
Sounds good.
And Kelly, do you want to set up another time to talk as far as going out and getting, some of your stuff photographed?
I actually would love that. I managed to get some pictures of Main Hall on campus and a couple of things that I'm in the same boat in, that I would love to have some feedback from you.
Okay, that stuff is going to be very specific, right? That'll be hard to duplicate some of those shots. So I had a similar conversation. Maybe we can do that, but at some point, maybe you and Alexis and I should do a call where because she's doing the same thing with Bozeman.
Okay.
Basically Belgrade to Livingston. And, like to own her niche, right? To try to have the best photograph portfolio of that area. And I know that we've talked about you doing the same thing in Missoula. So there are some things that overlap there. So it might be easier for me if I tell it once rather than, and we can learn from each other, right?
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah. So, but you and I should talk first. Let me know when you're free next week. You have a time slot, and I'll check my calendar. And let's do that.
Okay. I wanted to mention, this is completely off subject, but I wanted to mention that The Montana Historical Society is building a new museum. Have you heard about that?
No, where's that going to be?
That's in Helena.
Hmm.
And they're under construction now. And I do have a contact over there. And I didn't know if that would be a place that you would want to do some outreach to. I mean, it's a museum, and so they might already have some specific ideas as to what they're doing. Chances are high, but it just seemed like
It's the Historical Society?
Yeah.
I suspect they're going to use a lot of their historical shots already that they've got, but
Yeah.
in museums like that, they still, because of the nature of Montana,
Mhm.
you know, they may want some contemporary cowboy shots or scenic shots or things like that. So yeah, I'm always interested, and they have to do Montana. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Montana has the people who have been in Montana the longest will know this. There's a program that was passed by state legislature many years ago called a percent for art. Anytime a publicly paid for facility is constructed in Montana, whether it be a school or a prison or a educational hall, or in this case, maybe a museum, you have to set aside something like, it's huge. Like, I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it's a 1% or 10%. It can't be 10%. A percent, 1% of your project has to be dedicated to art. And so they buy like photos. I have 3 large photos on metal prints that are hanging in Deer Lodge in the prison there where inmates meet family members. And I have prints at Montana State University Northern Campus in Havre with a new building that's there. So yeah, so I mean, I assume they have to buy some kind of art for the building there, given that state law, and I could check to see, you know, what they might need. So that's a good lead. That's an excellent lead.
I can give you her information, and I'll tell you she's already a huge fan of your work because the reason I know you is through her. So it's a good lead. It's a good connection.
Even better. I'm happy to talk to people like that. So yeah, let's talk.
Okay.
So awesome. Anybody got any news about any other hotels or anything being built? Okay. If you ever hear anything like like if it's a hotel or a large bank building or hospitals or clinics, especially hospitals and clinics, they have lots of money compared to the hotel stuff. You don't make as much money on it, but hospitals and clinics, yeah, you can. Because, by the way, you have to understand, guys, the sale there isn't just your print. We get the sale. We get to get a commission. We get a cut off of doing the printing as well. So if they order a vinyl wall wrap, you know, I source that, and we get a cut of that action. If they order a frame print, well, there's the frame and the mounting and all that stuff. We get a cut of that. If it's a metal print or acrylic print, you know, we get money from that too. So that's why commercial art is so valuable.
I think that there's a new hospital down in the Bitterroot. I think, was it Stevensville or somewhere down there? They were building a new one. I think it was almost finished.
Yeah, it might. If it's almost finished, it might be too late. But art's always the last thing they buy, so I'll check. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I have a question for kind of everyone on this call. When you're going through like thousands and thousands of pictures, how do you go through them so dang fast? I feel like I'm just drowning in them.
I'll tell you how I do it. I use Photoshop, right? But I assume the same features are available on Lightroom. There's a feature on there where you just keep clicking the right hand key and just keep flipping through them, and when you see one that catches your eye, I'll press the keypad for 5 for edit now, or 4 for important. It's going to be a good shot, but I'll edit it later. And then 3 is like, I'll edit it maybe weeks or months from now. Now, that's the quality that I assess to an image. But you just have to keep, you don't have to spend too much time looking at it. You have to kind of wait for it to come into focus, depending on the speed of your computer. But you're first analyzing it from a compositional standpoint. Is there good lighting? Is it composed well? And if it is, stop and wait for it to come into focus, because it's a little slow on that tool. And then you can see if it's sharp or not. If it is, mark it as a 5 for let's edit it now. And that's top of the top, right? If I do 1,000 shots, I might have 3 or 4 that I consider elite, right? 4s, I hope on 1,000 shots, I'm getting 4s and 3s. I'm hoping I got 60 to 100 shots on that shoot that I consider keepers. And by the way, this brings back an opportunity to stress something. One of the keys to making sales is learning how to curate your own collections. You have to be critical of your own work, and you only show basically the best of the best. Now, there are exceptions to that rule. Like if you have to fill up a gallery, you might throw a few not so great shots in there, but you have to be critical on yourself. If it's not a good shot, use other magazines. Will look good in a magazine compared to what you've seen already. Use that as a benchmark. If the answer is yes, then mark it down as a 3, 4, or 5, or whatever it is you want to edit that, or rate it, whatever system you use. But you just keep hitting that key until you see a great composition one, or good lighting, good composition. It's and it's a good shot, and go from there. And then when you have more time, you can go back and revisit the 3s, which is what I do every winter when I have more time, and I'll see if I graded them correctly, if there's some gems in there that I didn't see, and I'll work on those. I guess I'd be interested in what the other ones do, but that's my process.
Yeah, I would agree with Todd, what he said on all of that. I think that's really great. Like one key, do you use Lightroom, Miranda?
I do.
Okay. One key, or one tip I would say is like researching keyboard shortcuts, because that really, really helps me when I'm editing to work faster. So I think when I'm going through and picking photos, that's the first thing I do is I just open up my Lightroom and I'm just in the viewing mode, the library mode, I think is what it's called. And I scroll through. I don't have it like full screen because then it slows it down, but I'll have it like medium screen. And I think it's the P key, and that will flag it. So that's how I select the photos that I like, is I'll click the P key as I'm scrolling. So I have one hand on the arrow and one hand on the P key as I'm going, and I just keep scrolling and hitting P when I see one that I like. And then I go back through again when I'm done with all of that, usually with a fresh eyes, and I will like hit the 8 key. So like I like to, that just changes it to be green. So now it'll be flagged and now it'll be green. So if I had like some similars, say like I liked 3 photos I flagged 3 photos, I'll be like, oh, well, these 3 are kind of similar. So I'll pick the best one out of those 3 and I'll color it green. So then I'll go through and I'll weed out the similars and figure out which one is the best one out of the similars. And then that usually weeds me down to like what Todd was saying, you're like 50 or 60 good photos to work with. And then you can start editing those and then deciding like what are my really stellar shots that maybe I could use, or, you know, if it's a family session, that might be all of those 50 photos that you give them or something, but that's kind of how I do it.
Gotcha. I've been, for my most recent project, I've been doing, you know, the rating like Todd had me do. But I might try the flagging too. That seems like it might work also.
Yeah, you have to develop a workflow that works best for you, right? I might have an overly technical, or you know, my mind's going to work differently than yours. Just so you have to know what your tools are and work, you know, and you know, use them the way that works best for you. So
Sure.
I would highly recommend to anyone though that you keep your photographs for as long as you can, even your rejects, because I think I've communicated this to some of you already in one-on-one sessions. You know, I'll find photographs years later that I missed, and they end up being huge money makers for me. So, you know, sometimes, because what happens is your abilities improve over time in editing and developing photographs. So your skill set, you're inevitably going to look at a photograph through your abilities today using Photoshop, but your abilities are going to improve dramatically over the career or life that you have using these products. And the tools change, as we've aptly demonstrated today with AI. So what you may not feel comfortable editing today might be a stellar photograph using new tools and new techniques you've learned, you know, 3 years from now, and it ends up being just an amazing photograph. So, you know, it can be expensive when you're taking thousands and thousands of photographs at some point to have to get like a RAID server, a NAS, a network connected storage device. You know, I have 18 terabytes of storage. Now, granted, that's not 18 terabytes of images. It's in a RAID configuration. So if one hard drive fails, my images aren't gone. It just enables me to prevent, if one hard drive were to fail, I still have my images. So it's stored. It's hard to explain, but it's stored on multiple hard drives. But still, it's 18 terabytes, and that can get pricey at some point. But the goal is to be making photographs and getting paid enough that, you know, it's just a cost of doing business. It's what you have to do. So, you know, be thinking of, you know, how to do that. And by the way, on a similar note, you know, when you're shooting for a client, Miranda, and some of you that are kind of, you know, newer to this process, you make sure that, you know, your photos are always safe. Never edit over that digital raw image that you took. Make sure that's always safe and never harmed in any way. And make sure that your edited files end up going uploaded. I always take an edited JPEG. I have a folder on my computer that every edited JPEG goes into this folder, a copy of it, and then it gets put up on the cloud. So in a worst case scenario, something happens and wipes out all of my servers and wipes out, you know, I have a fire, my whole place burns down. I will at least have a master JPEG that's online at full resolution that I could always access at some point. And then once a year, I do a dump of all the photos I took in that 1 year, and I put it onto an external hard drive, and then those get shipped. They get shipped off to my parents' place. My parents have a huge box under my boyhood bed with all my hard drives under it in case, you know, my fire burns. So in a worst case like that, the worst damage I would have would be losing my images from the current year, but not my final edited ones. And that can be, you know, that's a crisis I can overcome. So, but when you're making, and that means, by the way, protecting your images when you're out in the field too, which we can get into this a little bit more when we do the editing call, you know, 2 weeks from now. We don't need to do this now, but always protect your images. Always be very careful of that memory card. You know, I've heard some horror stories of wedding photographers that car burns up on the way home, or they lose a CF card, or it's corrupted. It's just horrible. Like, that must be gut wrenching. So just keep that in mind. Hell, I have lost one photograph in my career, right? I have this beautiful photograph and I can view it right now, and something happened and I can't find it. I can't find the digital negative. I can't find the edited version of it. I can't find it. This is a quest that began 8 years ago, and I can't find it. I'm sick over it. And that's just one image. So,
Todd, that kind of brings me to a question, because I have lost images before and lost the first I lost 25 years of my life in images before, and it is quite devastating.
I can imagine.
I guess I'm wondering if, because I have multiple, cards for my camera and whatnot, and I'm curious, how often do you just use yours for a window of time and assume that they may go corrupt? Because I've heard that story. I haven't, knock on wood, had that happen to me. My loss was due to an external hard drive. But I'm just curious if you use yours for a window of time and then you get something new, or do you have a system that you do just to prevent the corruption, since you've done obviously a lot of images for a long period of time and have only lost one image? That's impressive.
Well, you pose an interesting question. I haven't had to worry about that and I haven't had to worry about it yet. Here's why. My history in digital cameras started with a 12 megapixel camera, and then a 12 megapixel camera, and then a 20 megapixel camera, and then a 22 megapixel camera that shot video, and then a 45 megapixel camera. So during that entire time, my memory cards kept getting larger and larger and larger, which I was buying newer and newer, larger cards, and my old ones that were small, I was just pawning those off on family members, or they just sit at the bottom of my camera bag, never to be used again, or in storage. And so, I remember getting the 64 gigabyte cards going, oh my God, this is huge. Oh, that's nothing now, because they have 1 terabyte CF cards now. So, see you later, Adriana. So yeah, it just, my cameras have always evolved where I'm always buying the newer memory cards. Now, I don't think, unless I get into medium format photography, my cameras are going to get any larger than 45 megapixels. So I assume that the cards I have now are going to, be the cards I keep using. So you bring up a good question. I don't know that. It's something I probably need to research. I got to be honest with you. I've never had a corrupted card. That's not true. I had one with an old Sony. If you remember, there's a Sony Mavic camera that used to take photographs on a floppy disk back, around the year 2000. It was my first digital camera. Technically, it wasn't a DSLR. It was that piece of shit that I used for work. But as far as my CF cards, the only corrupted cards I ever had was because of a cable and not because of the card itself. I've always told with my cards, I never take the card out of my camera. I don't know if that's the correct procedure, but I was always taught, everything I do is based on what I learned online. So I don't know how accurate it is. But through a consensus in a group one day, it was determined the best process for transferring your images is to keep the card in your camera, to never remove it, to reformat it every time you remove it, but you remove it not to take it out and shove it into a card reader, okay? Because that can cause damage to your data. So I'll take it out to change cards if I fill it up, but I'll never take it out to put into a card reader. And I never format over it for like a couple days or a couple additional shoots just in case I didn't download them correctly. In other words, I make sure they're on my computer first and I wait a while before I use that card again. But every time I do use a new card in my camera, it's always reformatted every single time. And for downloading, I always use the cable to connect the camera to the computer to download, and not by taking the thing out and putting in the card reader. Now, there's been some exceptions to that because I've been on the road and I had no other choice. I didn't have my cable with me, so I had to go out and buy a card reader, things like that. But for the most part, I always use the cable that came with the camera. and plug it through the USB port or whatever, Thunderbolt or whatever method you're using to download. So that way, I think you limit what goes on in that regard. I have had, I mean, there's that one I told you about. I went through, there was one, I think there was one card that might have been, had a few corrupt images, but the whole thing wasn't. But as soon as I started seeing corrupt images on there, I believe that card was thrown out just because I wanted just to be sure. I don't think it's common for a card, I could be wrong. I don't think it's common for a card to suddenly have all of its images corrupted unless there was some damage to the card or the pins or something. I think
And,
that
and how did you know they were corrupt? It somehow shows that when you go to load it.
no, I'll show you what they look like. I don't know if I have any on my corrupted CF card file. Images. Here we go. This is what they look like. At least my experience. They'll look something like this. Can you see that? Yeah. You get these weird lines like this. So there's still data there, but it's, I don't know, it's askew. How it happens, I don't know. Now, by the way, I use nothing but CF. I mean, that's not, I'm misspeaking. I don't use nothing but CF cards, but my primary source for backing up data on my camera is a CF card, not an SD card. So I don't know how things differ with SD cards. I've always been of the opinion that the smaller the card gets, the more chances there are for corruption, but I don't know. I know many of you have cameras that probably don't use CF cards. I've never used, my camera has both a CF card slot and an SD card slot, and I use both. The SD card is used for backup. It always records a JPEG of the scene. And then my CF card is always for storing the raw files. That's how I use my camera. But again, some of you probably don't even have a CF card file, CF card slot. I suspect the Sonys don't. Which of you guys use it in a Sony?
I have
That's
the
mine.
Sony.
Yeah.
Does yours have a CF card, Jessica?
No, it's SD card. I had a CF card when I was under Canon, but yeah, Sony doesn't have the CF. I think it's because they have a smaller camera body, and that's kind of what they were aiming for. So I think that's why they went with the smaller cards.
Well, the mirrorless
I mean, it
probably
works
are going
good.
to SD cards, I bet.
Yeah, I don't have a CF card slot either.
What do you have for a camera?
The R6 Canon.
Canon. So CF cards are going away. Yep, I figured as much. Which reminds me, I need to go buy some more CF cards just in case, because I have I have 3 Canon 5D SRs in a box unused. So wouldn't it be shitty that I invest in those cameras so I never have to get another camera again and not have the memory cards to go in it? So I guess I better go get some. I was worried about batteries. They almost, during this whole export crisis, you couldn't get batteries. So I was scrounging for new batteries for my camera. I have now enough to cover me for the rest of my life. But yeah, I was worried about that for a while. But so yeah, so
I
SD,
think it's really important to, like Todd said, to back up your photos. That's one thing that they taught us in school is to, when you take photos and you have it on SD card. I mean, I do use a card reader when I upload my photos to my computer, but like Todd said, I don't use that card again until I have put the photos on a hard drive and then backed up that hard drive to a second hard drive. So I always
Right.
have my main hard drive and then my backup hard drive because hard drives, like you said, Kelly, they can fail so easily. And so it's really important to have 2 copies and ideally keeping your backup at like a friend's house or something because like if you did have a house fire or something, you didn't lose all of your work or something. Or these days you could have it online, like Todd said, he has a file online for all of his really important photos, which is a good idea.
I tell you what, I mean, this sounds overly aggressive, but when I first got into photography, people would approach me to buy my images, and if it wasn't a lot of money, I'd say, don't waste my time. Not because I was being arrogant, but because the photos I took meant more to me than I thought, especially if you're not paying a lot of money to use them. They must mean more to me than it does to them. I have photographs, I mean, I'll make no bones about that I love, and I'm so happy that I made them. It's not because I'm arrogant, it's because I'm very prideful of what I did. I think most of us have that in us if we make photos. So part of me worries about, the day and age when, everything we're using is obsolete, or something happens and, technology goes away or something. So, I mean, I'm actually outsourcing now. I can only afford to do a few a year because it's not the most important thing that's going in my life. But my best, 300-400 images, I am in the process. I'll be completed probably in 2 or 3 years. There's people out there that will take your digital images and turn it into a slide, a high resolution slide, 600 pixel per inch, basically a color negative, but it's a slide is what it is. And so I can put those in a safety deposit box because, I got to be honest with you, with me being sick and stuff, I start worrying about, if I die tomorrow, right, my best photographs will probably be lost forever because most people in my family won't know what to do with them. So, this doesn't apply. Commercial stuff, what Jessica is saying, is the most important part because we can't look stupid in front of a client. But there's another reason for it. If you have cherished photographs that can best be described as heirloom quality, meaning, of members of your family or just stuff that are important to you or your legacy or the legacy of, whoever is in them, then you got to be thinking of ways that they will outlive you. I mean, my nephew, who's, but he doesn't understand photography. He has instructions that if something ever happens to me, the first thing he's supposed to do is hop in his car and come to my place and grab. I have network storage servers in 2 places, one in Wisconsin and one in Montana. And he's supposed to grab the black box, unhook it, and take it and put it under his bed. And we've had long conversations about, you'll figure out what to do with it then. And he and my brother have access to all my passwords. Because if you don't have the passwords, you're never getting into that crap. So, and they have instructions about how to keep my websites alive and up and running. So revenue can keep coming through the front door, right? Even though I'm gone or or incapacitated or whatever. But you guys got to all be thinking the same stuff. It was easy back when I, was young. If you had a hard photograph, an analog photograph, but even those go away after 100 years. So the best thing you can do is also make prints of them. Just make prints. So sorry, I interrupted.
Oh,
Jessica.
no, it's okay, Todd. A really good reference is the Rocky Mountain School of Photography. It might be shortened to RMSP. They have a YouTube channel, and they have like a lot of great videos, whether it's editing videos or like setting up your hard drives and learning how to back them up and setting up your Lightroom and just stuff like that. They have a lot of free content, and that's where I went to school, and I couldn't recommend them more. I mean, they're amazing people. They're amazing teachers, and they still, if we ever have questions or need references or something, they always have our back. And so they're just really awesome people and have some good content. If you wanted to look them up on YouTube, you could check their free YouTube page out.
I mean, Jessica was fortunate. She went to one of the better photo schools in the country. For the rest of you and us, that includes me, we didn't go to photo school. So if you are interested in making photography a career or just to be really good at it, then frankly, you might want to adopt the method that I took. My method was, I went to the University of YouTube, and that meant every week, this was starting out. I haven't done it as much lately, which is bad, but every week I would spend time learning a new technique. Just one technique. It can be small, it can be quick, but I spent time delving into it, and I got different opinions on it, and I researched it online. I would spend an hour or two, sometimes a day, researching a technique and experimenting with it and make sure I had it memorized to my head. Maybe I didn't know how to execute it perfectly, but I knew what to do if I were in that situation. And then when it came to Photoshop or digital editing, I would try to do the same thing. I would learn a new technique in Photoshop because I use Photoshop. I would learn a new button, some tool, because there are millions of them in Photoshop. I would learn that new tool, what it did, once a week. And you just got to, and it doesn't mean just going to one video. You have to find out how other people are using it, because I think even in Jessica and I talking, I guarantee you there must be something that Jessica and I do that we do differently, because we come from two different schools of thought, literally and figuratively. So you have to go out there and get multiple opinions on it and figure out what works best for you. Well, we found one. Jessica takes her CF cards out. I don't. So you have to come up with what you think makes the most sense. I could be all wrong, and I admit that, because I don't have formal training. But I think Jessica would also agree. We were having a conversation about this just the other night. There are people who teach photography who are all wrong too. They can be wrong about stuff also. So this professor we both know, who at least I feel is all wrong. So you got, if you love photography, you have to take the time. Photography is a very technical. I guess I'd be interested in what Jessica thinks about this, but this is my theory on photography. The people who work best with photography, in my opinion, are those who have a very strong, who are, we always talk about left brain, right brain. A right brain is a person who's very creative. These are the people that make musicians. These are the people who are great with, arts and crafts. They're great in marketing, things like that. They're great dancers. Then there's people who are very technical. These are the people that are engineers and make accountants, and they work with numbers and they work with science, and it's the STEM type stuff. Well, photography is a little bit of both. There's a very creative side and there's a very technical side. And it's my experience, and I could be wrong, that the best photographers are the ones who are creative, but also are a little bit of both. They have to also have a strong technical ability. So if you feel you're a one or the other and not down the middle of the road, like some people are, then you need to strengthen that side of your brain that's weak. And, I suspect I didn't know how technical photography was until I got into it. I thought it was just snapping pictures. I knew there was some technical stuff to it, but I didn't know it was as in depth, and dealing with all these ratios and dealing with all these, things like hyperfocal distance, and there's rules of light, and there's just all kinds of rules and even mathematical formulas and computing depth of field and focal lengths and, the inverse of, there's just stuff. So there's a very technical side to it, and in editing too, my zone system and, color, rules of color and all that other. So there's a very technical side to it. It's not the same as building a bridge, but it's technical. So, the more time you spend, being a great photographer is simple. Honestly, you have to make thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of photos. And you have to read and watch videos a lot. If you stop making photographs, you will. I'm not sure you will. And I've experienced this because I've been sick. Your abilities will you go into atrophy a little bit. I did experience this. I went through a divorce. And for a year, I can't believe I'm admitting this to you guys, but I'm going to. During the year of basically in 2019, was it? No. It was 2009. That's how far back it was. During the summer of 2009, I was just very angry at the world. And I spent what my friends call the summer of Todd. And it was like, I didn't care. I laid myself off from work and I had the means to do so. And I just, played poker and hit on women and drank. And that's what I did for an entire year. Nothing else. I wasn't like a bad person. I just didn't care. And I didn't photograph at all, hardly at all. I mean, there's just exceptions, but I hardly at all photographed for that. So then it was like my first time I whipped out my camera was when I landed in Montana in March 2010. It's the first time I whipped out my camera in over a year. And there was about a good month there where I had to get back into the groove after being away for a year. So if you're not constantly making photographs of anything, right? They don't have to be photographs you sell. But if you're not constantly using your camera and you're not constantly trying to prove your craft, you won't be getting any better. That's just not how it works. So, and by the way, there's a famous chart out there about you're going to be on the right track if you follow the mood curve for photographer. The mood photographer is like, a chart where it goes high and low, and it's like a histogram. So like when you first make photographs and you get that one killer shot that you think is killer, you think you're the world's greatest photographer in the world. And then after you keep shooting for a while, you find out you're not, and it crashes to the bottom. And then there's a slow, gradual climb to the rest of your life where you just inched up to get close to where you were on that day you took that first photograph. That's how photography is. So, I encourage you, Jessica spent, 2-3 years doing nothing but studying photography. She was forced to. Her tuition required her to do so. You guys don't have to pay any money on that, but it means you need to be a hell of a lot more diligent because you're not going to have, people correcting your work, looking over your shoulder. You're going to have to figure out how to do that on your own. But I'm here to help some of you too, if you guys need help, and I don't know everything, you still got to do stuff on your own. But I'll help you with what I know, which is rare, by the way. I hope you guys understand that I don't, outside of this group, I've never done this before. I bristled at the idea of offering workshops to photographers. I hated the idea because it's like, why would I train my competitors? It makes no sense. And Bill Gates doesn't give us a class in how to program operating systems or to market them. So I hated the whole idea of doing this. So I bristle at the idea of helping other photographers. I'm doing it here because I'm ill and I have knowledge and I'd like to impart it on other people, and I still have to earn a living. So that's how I'm doing it. So you guys can consider yourselves either fortunate or unfortunate because you're the guinea pigs in this experiment of mine. But I've never done this before, ever. And I don't encourage you guys to be, too willing with unless you're being paid to do it, right, Jessica? If we get paid to do a workshop, that might be one thing. But, if you learn something clever out of this organization, don't share it with your peers because they'll copy it. They're going to copy it anyhow. If they learn about, you're doing a certain business thing, you'll take a beautiful photograph of some beautiful landscape. I photographed Birdtail Butte in Chinook, Montana, a butte that is very beautiful and very few people see. And as soon as those started appearing on magazines, the whole place was flooded with photographers to photograph it. So I'm getting off the beaten path. I do that. See, we were done 30 minutes ago. But if you have questions, what else? Anybody else got a question? If you do, and we, if we ran long, just, let me know afterwards. Kelly, get back to me about the time to talk next week. Adriana was going to do that too. So if that's it, let me know. And if you have questions, let me know. I'm happy to help. Okay.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
You
Good
too.
night.
Yep.
Thank-
Bye.